Coming up, the family of Mabel Holy honors her 120 years after her death at the Rapid City Indian School. Plus, we visit with artist Holly Wilson. And an Ojibwe citizen's fitness journey now includes a finish time for a marathon in France. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is honored to be a supporter of Indian Country Today. ASU offers the only online undergraduate digital media literacy degree, teaching students how to recognize and combat inaccuracies on all platforms. They are using cutting-edge tools and tactics to separate fact from fiction in a digital world overloaded with misinformation. Learn more at cronkite.asu.edu.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Amadawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. We start in Washington, D.C., where the U.S. Supreme Court will soon add a new justice to the bench. On Friday, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson addressed the public. She was confirmed by the U.S. Senate last week. In her remarks, she was met with applause while speaking on the South Lawn of the White House.
It has taken 232 years and 115 prior appointments for a Black woman to be selected to serve on the Supreme Court of the United States. But we've made it. We've made it, all of us, all of us.
Oneida Indian Nation Representative Ray Halbritter was in attendance at the event. He praised Jackson, saying her confirmation represents a, quote, important step in having a bench that reflects the diversity of the U.S. In a joint letter, leaders from the National Congress of American Indians and the Native American Rights Fund said they welcomed the opportunity to engage with Jackson on federal Indian law. And elsewhere, tribal nations like the Navajo Nation congratulated Jackson on her confirmation. She will join the Supreme Court in early summer and will fill the seat of retiring Justice Stephen Breyer. Tribal nations in the state of California are being asked to share their long-standing traditions of fire containment. Governor Gavin Newsom is launching a new containment plan with the Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force. The U.S. government outlawed burnings in Native communities in 1911 through the Weeks Act. In California, tribal nations have successfully managed forests in hot, dry areas since time immemorial. By setting off controlled burns or intentional fires, tribes are able to remove organic materials from forest floors that can act as hazardous fuel sources. In 2020, California passed laws with specific cultural burning allowances for hunting access and ceremonies. The task force's goal is to expand this indigenous practice to at least 400,000 acres annually by 2025. In Arizona, a native Hawaiian family is happy to once again bless the canoes, which signals the start of the canoe racing season. It's the first time they've been able to do this since the pandemic put a halt to all races in 2020. The club was founded 25 years ago by Selena Mahalani Garza Tampos's family. They named it Naleo Okekai Canoe Club, which means Voices of the Sea.
Today we're honoring the canoes and honoring the land and the lake and all of the people and the members. We do it as a tradition and as a protocol once a year before they start racing or before they bring on new students.
Club members compete in races in Arizona and Hawaii. The blessing is also meant to protect the canoes and the paddlers. An Indigenous street artist is adding their work to Australia's capital city. More than 30 artists are transforming walls with unusual and vivid artworks. The art across the city of Canberra is all part of the Surface Festival. And among the massive murals, Indigenous artwork is also popping up. Indigenous street artist Christy Peters painted a mural with eagles. But as Peters explains, her art is more than just creating something pleasing to the eye.
My name is Christy Peters. I'm a Parabba woman. This particular artwork that I'm working on is called Mully on the Eagle. It's acknowledging country and paying my respects on the land. It's also the importance of connection to country with particular animals that we are connected to on country as well.
Festival organizers hope that the artworks by Peters and others will draw more people to visit Canberra. A native drum group is releasing a new album, all in an effort to save their language. The first single by the Eastern Medicine Singers' new album is called Daybreak, and the lyrics are in the Massachusetts dialect of the Eastern Algonquin language. This dialect was once spoken by thousands of people before colonization, but now has less than 10 fluent speakers remaining. Drum leader Daryl Black Eagle Jameson says it's important to see the language in the lyric video so people know it is still being used. The full album is expected to be out on July 1st of this year. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Coming up, Red Lake Ojibwe citizen Brendan Strong shares his personal journey to better health, which includes a recent trip to France. But first, Stuart Huntington has more details behind a memorial for Native children who attended a federal Indian boarding school in South Dakota. Stay with us. It looks like a memorial planned to honor children who died at an Indian boarding school is a go now that the project has raised more than $2 million. Stuart Huntington is here with more. Welcome, Stuart. Tell us more about this remarkable story.
Thanks, Aaliyah. It's an honor to be here with you. This is a wonderful story out of the Native community in Rapid City, South Dakota, that for more than a century never gave up on finding the children who died at the old Rapid City Indian boarding school. Today, a monument to those children is set to become a reality now that the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation has donated $2 million to the project. Community members who worked on this are excited.
We get to lead the way in healing. We get to make a space for those stories to come alive and to be part of the community history and to be acknowledged at a level that has never been acknowledged before.
The children need to be remembered. They need to be remembered that their lives, that were tragically lost and taken way too soon, that their lives are still remembered, that there's a place we can go and grieve.
Every year for the past 5 years on Native Americans Day, the community has held a march and a ceremony to honor and remember the students who died at the school. The school operated from 1898 to 1933. The memorial project began a few years before, when Brown and others began looking into the questions that the Unchis, or grandmothers, had been asking for nearly a century. What are we going to do about the graves up on the hill? The volunteers began looking at the records and found the names of more than 50 students who died at the school, but they couldn't find all the graves. They eventually determined that many of the children were buried on a hill just west of the main school buildings. They put the land in trust and then began planning to build a memorial.
Stuart, what kinds of things are planned for the memorial?
There'll be a sculpture and a walking path up the hill with boulders along the way with the names of the children who died at the school. Also planned are 4 Inepi purification lodges.
Rapid City has been in the news recently, of course, with the news of the Grand Gateway Hotel. Tell us more about what the reaction has been to this story.
This is a healing story. The tensions in Rapid City have been going on for a long time, and they don't seem to be going away anytime soon. I spoke with the mayor of the city, and he said that he thought this project was important. It will initially be for the people who know the history of the boarding school era, he said, but eventually it will help teach those who don't.
Stuart, I imagine that there's so many important stories that come from this memorial. Tell us about those.
Oh, they're heart-wrenching, Aaliyah. One story makes this project personal for volunteer Kibby Brown. Her grandmother and other relatives went to the school, and her great uncle Adolph McGaw died there in a boiler explosion. The family thinks he had taken some potatoes from the field where all the kids were forced to work, and he brought a potato to supplement his meager rations and was trying to cook it in the boiler room when there was a huge explosion. They had to identify him by his shoes. And then, Aaliyah, there's the story of Mabel Holy. Among the stories uncovered by the Rapid City Indian Boarding School Project researchers was the saga of Mabel Holy, who records show died at the school in 1901. She died before her parents could be notified, and the family was never told where she was buried. In 1929, her brother Leon Holy wrote to the school for word. The school responded that no records existed. I regret to advise you that we cannot give you the desired information, wrote School Superintendent Sharon Moat. Then, in 2017, the boarding school researchers located Holy's grave in a Rapid City municipal cemetery with a small headstone with the name misspelled. Shortly thereafter, Leon Holy's then 87-year-old son Martin Holy drove down with other family members to finally reunite with their long-lost relative. Mabel's great-niece, Violet Catches, now serves on the Elders Committee advising the effort to build a memorial to the students who died at the Indian boarding school. She said in 2017 she spoke to her great-aunt at the gravesite.
So I imagine that she may have thought that she was forgotten, so I told her, see, you're not forgotten. They found you. We found you, we're here. We're gonna do all we can to remember you from now on. Finding her is really a kind of a joy, and at the same time it's very sad. Sad because of the fact that my grandpa was looking for her, my grandma was looking for her. They didn't get to see her.
It's remarkable, Aaliyah. And it turns out that the volunteers found Mabel just in time. Martin Holy passed away not long after those shots were taken.
Well, Stuart, thank you so much for your reporting and for being here today.
Thank you, Aaliyah.
Red Lake Ojibwe citizen Brendan Strong was looking for a way to walk off a late-night unhealthy meal when he began long-distance running. So far, Brendan has logged over 91 miles and has 3 half marathons and 2 full marathons under his belt. He joins the show today to talk about his fitness journey and his recent race in Paris. Welcome to the show, Brendan.
Bonjour, Menugikijit from Red Lake, Minnesota. I'm very thankful to be on here this morning with you all, and I truly appreciate this opportunity.
So let's just jump right into this. Tell us how your running journey began.
Well, I remember it was in the summer of 2020, I just remember one late night, I had a burger, and then I went to bed, after that. Then I woke up the next morning, and I just felt really awful, we always beat each other up when when, we eat something like a little unhealthy, and then we want to work it off, so that's basically what I wanted to do. So there's this little area or a little circle where the college and government center is in Red Lake. So I wanted to walk that off and, do some laps, so the more I walked into those laps, I had this sudden urge to, just go a little faster, just to keep the blood flowing and just have that, just that urge, So I started jogging, and the more that I kept running, and the more it just felt cool, and just feeling that faster pace and everything like that. So I just started running, and then that runner's high just kicked in. I didn't know it was real until that adrenaline rush just kicks in all of a sudden. So, that morning, that was my very first time like logging in a mile and a half, and so I just fell in love since, and then pretty much that next day after, or it was a couple days after, I signed up for my very first half marathon, and that was the Bemidji Blue Ox virtual marathon. So
And when you started this fitness journey, I mean, I can just imagine you walking and, as you said, picking it up to a jog. Did you ever think that running a half marathon and now, a couple marathons is something that you would ever do?
honestly, no, like that's the thing. Like I don't think, like I don't plan. I just go with the flow. Whatever I see in sight. I just do it. I just go for like stepping out of my comfort zone and just doing what anyone else that couldn't do. I do this because not only setting the example for myself, but like there's a lot of people that are rooting for me and like giving me that support. That gives me an extra motivation. And I really am grateful that I transformed in so many ways. Not only like physical health, but mental health too, and that's very important when you want to, how would you say it? Not only you want to lose weight for looks, but you want to feel alive, and that's definitely what I aim for. So there's no doubt that I am grateful for this way of life.
Every time I talk to runners, I think one of the big things that always comes up in a conversation is this idea of praying while you're running. So often across tribal communities, running is medicine and it's prayer. So I'm wondering if you can reflect on that.
This recent marathon, when I was in Paris, I've done nothing but pray. Praying, it helps me throughout the day. I definitely pray for guidance and for those that can't really physically do these kinds of things. And pray for my family, who I truly love and care about. My friends that I'm really close to my heart and things like that. So prayer is a huge thing. When you're physically doing these opportunities, because you're not only running for yourself, but you're running for those who really, how would you say it, who are there with you, in spirit, regardless. So that's why I love praying while I'm running too.
Brendan, we only have about a minute left, but of course, we can't leave you without talking about Paris. Tell us about that experience and what you're taking away.
Man, oh man, it's beautiful. It's everything that I imagined. Like I said, I didn't really plan to even go. But I did put my name, information in a lottery thing, and then months later, I got an email saying that I've been selected to go. So I couldn't pass it up. Paris, France. How could you not pass that up? So definitely running in that marathon, and also being the first Native American to finish that marathon too, it's just blessings after blessings, and I'm thankful.
Well, Brendan, congratulations to you and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm truly grateful for this opportunity.
Telling stories through art. It's the purpose of the works made by Holly Wilson. She explores her Delaware and Cherokee heritage through her pieces and tells stories about herself, her family, and the world around her. She's been exhibiting and selling her art since the early 1990s. Holly Wilson joins us today to share more about her art. Welcome, Holly. Let's start off by exploring your world of art. Tell us how you started creating characters that reflect stories about your family.
I originally actually started doing photography in high school. And that's how far back it dates. And if you really want to go way back way back, I was doing work with my dad when I was really young. He was a painter that turned into an architect. And so I would sit and draw with him when I was really little. And then from there, it just kind of continued. And photography for me was this great way to be able to capture like a hidden moment. You steal these pieces of people's emotions when they're not looking. And from there, I started working from them in drawing and painting in college. And then eventually it became sculpture. And I love the idea of the 3D because you can get around a piece and it becomes like a real person. And so that is where that became. And I still work pretty exclusively from either imagery I've captured or like looking at you and going, oh, I like how the bridge of your nose goes or the size of your lips. And then I'll pull those and then I put them into characters, as I like to call them, people within the stories. So.
As I mentioned before, so much of your artwork revolves around your family and your family story. How do you choose exactly what you want to work on?
Whatever, because it really, I used to tell history stories, is probably the best way to look at it when I was unmarried and didn't have kids. And because me and the world was just like, almost like those horses with blinders. You only see what affects you. You do some other, but for the most part, it's just your world. But when I started to have kids, the stories my mom would tell me that were from her grandmother and her grandmother's grandmother really started to affect me because then I had these kids. And so the stories became what was pertinent and important to them and what affected them in today's world. And so all the stories, anything that I decide that I need to work on is because it's in the moment for them. And it's interesting how that moment, I think, though it affects my family, I think any family can lay their story over that because we all have a very similar path.
Right now, you're having the chance to explore all of that kind of creativity full time. You're doing a residency. Tell us more about that.
I got selected to do a residency at the Momentary, which is an auxiliary space of Crystal Bridges in Bentonville. And they were like, you can do anything you want. And I'm like, wow, too many choices. But for me, the biggest thing is I never have, trying to do research and try other materials with my show schedule becomes really difficult. And so what I wanted to do was focus exclusively on looking at my family heritage and where we come from. So we're Delaware, we're Cherokee, and I'm actually from two different bands from the research. There's the Delaware Nation, but then we're also connected to the Cherokee Nation. But the more I look, we're also actually Delaware's out of Kansas, and we both came from, New York. And so this idea of place has become a big thing in my stories and when I look at where we are. And so one of the things I'm working on in the background are very large paintings because my studio currently is in a trailer, a single wide trailer, and it only has 7-foot walls. So this is a huge painting on the back, just over 7 foot. And it is a photograph I'd taken of my daughter, and she's holding a series of animals. So it's kind of like that idea of caring for the animal world. But then she is in front of an abstracted image of a bandolier bag that's Delaware. And it's so much I hear from youth, not just mine, but others, where it's like, well, how can I claim my nativeness when I don't live on a reservation or I don't look or I don't fill in this blank? And my conversation is, it's like your heartbeat, it's like your blood, it runs deep within, and it's not something that you have to carry on the outside. And so in this, it's this painting of this girl, and she's carrying her heritage behind her with her as it pushes her forward. So that's kind of the images of things that I'm looking at.
I hate to end on such a big question, but Holly, I'm very curious, in your entire career as an artist, what has been your proudest moment?
Oh, I don't. I just think the biggest thing is when people see my work and they connect with it on a visceral level. I know that sounds odd, but when somebody gets what you've made, that right there is the nugget that you take with you. So I think that's the proudest I've ever been. So
Well, Holly, thank you so much for sharing your artwork with us today and for being here.
thank you for your time. Thanks so much. You have a good one.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For more news, visit IndianCountryToday.com. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives. I am Aaliyah Chavez.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.